Now, a genius is pretty easy to predict a lot more if you compare to a fool, because a fool's going to have no logic. A fool's not going to make sense on why they do the things they do, because they don't consider the possibility and consequences for everyone surrounding them. And to see a man like Philip get manipulated into stealing food that was not meant for his group, was not meant for this other group, it was meant for a very specific group. And in doing so, it basically puts the kingdom in a very sticky predicament, because when you look at that note or the letter that he sends to the kingdom, like near like the 18-minute mark in the episode, there is so many seals on that. It's not even just like Big Papa Bone Daddy saying, don't cross me because I'll destroy you. That's pretty fearful enough. Add in the dwarves, add in some dragon folk, it's stacking upon stacking upon stacking. And after already having the Empire literally bend the knee and become a vassal state, things aren't looking good for anyone who doesn't play along with what Ainz wants to do. And the Sorcerer Kingdom is not to be messed with. Hell, in this episode of all characters who has been broken, stripped down, and bruised more than I think a lot of characters in this show, comparing where she started out to now literally craving the sweetness of the pain that is Ainz's whip. People are falling in line, and those that don't, as seen by Philip, are literally costing kings their heads. If you did not watch the credits, and the moment during the credits is around the halfway point when the ED's playing, you literally see Albedo pop up, and the king offers his head in exchange for a foolish person's actions. Now, here's the thing with Overlord. You can flip a coin, and things could easily happen in the way that makes sense. So in this case, someone offering their head to please Ainz makes a lot of sense. You could see how that would happen. But then there's the other 50% where Philip could declare a national war just because he was stupid enough to think he could. And honestly, a fool going up against Ainz, this dude's already so, deep in the pool of being, now the carrot and the stick plan is a global thing, not even just a small, just a little focusing on a kingdom. Nope, we're gonna put it global now because of this misunderstanding. Philip could literally not destroy, I don't think Philip's gonna, just cause so much misunderstanding and so much confusion because he's just an idiot, and it forces things to change direction. But I'm not going to be surprised if Philip lasts a bit longer than I think many of us were anticipating, just because he's foolish enough to dodge bullets because he doesn't decide to actually move to the right or left like one would suspect if a bullet's coming towards you. And because of that, he's going to slip on his ass, fall, dodge the bullet, it will kill some big political bigwig, and in return will start a catastrophic event. And that's the type of shenanigans you love to see in Overlord, because Overlord is this long-term story. The smallest of actions can have the biggest of consequences, seasons and arcs down the line, and that's what makes an episode like this really fun, because we've had quite the adventure over the past 3 or 4 episodes, and now focusing back in on the kingdom here after literally having the Empire bend the knee, and based on rumblings, the Emperor is probably not doing so hot right now. But ultimately, you have this massive issue when it comes to food, and someone who literally has undead warriors who can grow crops, tend the fields day in and day out, and never break a sweat. Obviously you can understand how food shortage could become a bigger issue with a human kingdom, where obviously slave labor could only take you so far if you decide to really push humans to their breaking limit, and even then it wouldn't be enough. And then you add in a couple of goons just casually manipulating a drunken Philip, and you get a recipe for disaster. And I love the fact that for Ainz, he meets so many people, he has so many of these plans that he didn't come up with, but are basically his plans by the looks of so many different characters. So he'll always make sure, people can voice their opinion so he can kind of clue into what's going on. I love the moment where he's like, I don't even recognize this person, to be honest. Literally shaking in her boots, not knowing what's going to happen next. And ultimately, I love the way, she kind of gets out of, what should have been a major death penalty or torture for life. Is okay, well, if she's responsible for the dumbass Philip, you're responsible for her, and then therefore I'm responsible for you. So I'm the one who should be punished here, and just kind of dissolves that entire situation. And I love the fact of the matter is, when she goes back and her people are like, okay, you need to rinse out your mouth because of all the shit they've seen and experienced. And she literally says, it's something about how, she never thought the sweetness of the pain of his whip could be that great. And I'm like, we already had enough people thirsting over Papa Bone Daddy. We didn't need another one, but for your sake, it's probably best you worship him like that, rather than maybe shaking your boots every time you see him. But then again, given that she seemingly likes the pain of the whip, I think she's going to be very similar to Shulchair over there, who likes to be sat on and used and abused. And I think we had enough of those characters without joining in on the fray, but leave it to Overlord to prove us wrong that there's never too many chairs to go around. I'm excited to see what's going to happen, though, because on one hand, I could easily see the king actually getting his head cut off and then basically transitioning into, because you have, obviously, a big plot point that's been kind of built up over last season there, was you have, like, this prince and princess and just everything that's going on. And I kind of imagine, like, this would be the natural point to transition more into that, because as it stands, they can't do too much with, you know, father on the throne. Father has his own ideas and ways to do things. But it almost feels like backstabbing is getting closer and closer to happening, because there's no way that this dude who's going to end up ascending the throne someday, probably also going to have some stabbing in the back at one point. It's hard to say for sure, but kind of get my gist here. But that's going to be pretty fun, man. I think this episode of Overlord gets me very excited for this remaining arc of the season. I've heard a lot of people hype this one up, saying that this was like the big moment they were waiting for this season of Overlord, which is kind of crazy because when you look at what's come before in season 4 up to this point, it's been really, really great content. I'd argue my favorite content that the anime's shown us so far. So if this arc can even surpass what we've seen so far, I mean, good things are coming. And then obviously we have the movie, which I think is set to air next year, with that arc that kind of comes in between, I think, where this arc starts and the arc that we just finished ends. I think the movie takes place in between those, if my memory's correct here. But that's going to be pretty fun, and probably by the time we finish that up, we'll get closer to the light novels officially ending, because I think there's only a couple left planned if the author is to be believed. So we're getting closer to the end of this show, and it's going to be exciting to see what the final hurrah, the final push will be, because this is the type of story that you could easily see lasting hundreds of episodes, but at the same time you could easily see things just end in such a quick motion, because as quickly as world domination plans start, they could easily end, and an idiot basically shakes everyone's opinion of what the new normal is, because an idiot doesn't make sense. A fool isn't to be trusted, but a fool going up against someone who literally has no idea what his own plans are, because basically people are putting him on such a pedestal that he tries to make them make their own plans, and in return he gets the carrot and the stick to become world domination. And I love the fact that, you know, going with Ainz up against Philip, there's not too many characters that can throw Ainz off course in the way that Philip just did, but leave it to Philip. The man's an idiot, the man's a fool, and the man will probably have one of the worst deaths when we do eventually see it. Or he'll have the funniest death because he is a fool, he could slip and break his neck, and that could be that. But all things considered, sometimes a fool is what you need in the later portions of a show like Overlord, just to shake the cast to their core and make the carrot and the stick plan become even bigger than I think we initially intended. All things considered, though, this was another pretty fun episode, some great facial reactions. I love seeing Bone Tatty up there just getting flustered, not knowing what the hell he's witnessing, and I think we're gonna have some fun stuff coming up, if not brutal stuff coming up in the future. But thoughts and feelings and theories down below if you got any. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.